3, 2, 1. Welcome to Blitzy Glory Podcast, your home for all things college football. I'm your host, Alec, and let's dive right into it. On today's show, you will get my game picks, my upset ladder picks, cover picks, and my thoughts on Julian Sayin through 4 games. Why don't we hop right in and start with the game picks? As I'm pulling them up, how is everybody's morning, afternoon, wherever you are located? How is your day going? We start in the Big 12, Friday night, October 3rd at 10:30, West Virginia, BYU. BYU is favored by 18.5. This line has not moved since yesterday. And originally, my pick was going to be West Virginia, but looking at it, seeing as BYU is at home, I don't see BYU losing this game. I can't. So with that being said, and y'all can pick against me if you want. If you want, pick against me. It's good competition. But I'm going to take BYU 34-21. I do like the way Rich Rod and West Virginia are playing, but still give me BYU. Now we get to Saturday, and we get to Kansas and UCF. I know last night on the Saturday Night Lights podcast, I took UCF, but I'm switching my pick on this show. I am going to take Kansas. Kansas is a 5.5-point favorite. Total is 54.5. Shoot. That's not what we want to do. Hold up. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I like Kansas here to cover the 5.5 and win outright. I know on the other show I took UCF, and I understand Kansas is coming across the country kind of to Orlando. I still think Kansas wins this game. Iowa State and Cincinnati just added this one before the show. I like Iowa State to win this game, and I don't get the people out there that have said, oh, Iowa State's got to travel to Cincinnati, Ohio, and Cincinnati's a 1.5-point favorite. This spells Cincinnati winning this game. Absolutely not. Iowa State is a wagon, and you take Iowa State plus 1.5 to win. And here's another reason you're going to take Iowa State, because I think this is a fluke 3-1 start for Cincinnati. They really haven't played. They're 1-0 in the Big 12, but they haven't really been tested yet in conference. And Iowa State has already played 2 conference games, one of them being against Kansas State in Dublin to start the year. But I feel like this is a bigger and better test for Cincinnati. But with that being said, like I said a minute ago, we are going to go with Iowa State. Baylor and Kansas State. And Baylor's a 6.5-point favorite, and they're at home. I said this on the other podcast I run with Bradley last night. Things are going to get wacky in Waco. And I'm not talking about stupid stuff. I'm talking about football-wise. And I'm not talking about this for Kansas State. I'm talking about Baylor. Baylor could run up the score on Kansas State. Kansas State is not a bad team. They're just having a down season. In no way, shape, or form do I think Chris Kleiman is on the hot seat. If I thought he was on the hot seat, he would have already been gone. He is not on the hot seat. But give me Baylor. TCU. Colorado is the last Big 12 game that we are picking. And I explained this last night on the other on Saturday Night Lights with Bradley. And we both explained it. And I'm going to kind of explain it again if you didn't hear the referendum we gave out last night. Colorado, it seems like they have decided who their quarterback's going to be, at least in the short term, and that being Caden Salter, the Liberty transfer. But I don't trust Caden Salter. We've seen he has had a couple good games. He's also had a couple bad games. And they went to Ryan Staub. Not to beat around the bush here, but when are you going to play the freshman, Dion? You know you're going to lose Juju Lewis. He will probably, at the end of the year, if he doesn't get any playing time, he will probably jump in the portal and go somewhere else. But with that being said, give me TCU to win. TCU's at home, 13.5-point favorite. There is no way TCU loses this game. Yes, there's a few games we skipped because we only do 5 games per conference. And the next conference is the Big Ten. And the first game is Michigan and Wisconsin on Fox Saturday at noon. Michigan's a 17.5-point favorite. Wisconsin fans, and I will briefly talk about this at the end of game picks before I get to Julian Sayin. But I feel like Luke Fickell, if he loses this game by more than 10, 20 points, he's out as Wisconsin's coach. But with that being said, I am going to take the Michigan Wolverines to beat Wisconsin. Then we get to Washington and Maryland. Can we put Maryland? Can we say Maryland is a contender in the Big Ten? I think we can. I don't think this is a fluke. And I would love to not put Washington on upset alert. But after what I saw, don't get me wrong, Damon Williams is a good quarterback. But he needs more time to develop. With that being said, we are going to take Maryland here. And if you're doing any type of betting on this game, take Maryland to win outright and cover the spread of 6.5. Next, we get to Nebraska and Michigan State. Now, both of these teams are 3-1. Nebraska coming off a bye week. Same with Michigan State. Michigan State did not play last week. Both teams are 0-1 in the conference. Somebody needs this to win more than the other. And I really wanted to take Nebraska here, but I like Matt Rule and I like what he's doing in year 3. But I got to go with Michigan State and Jonathan Smith in year number 2. I think Michigan State is making a push here to be the other representative in the Big Ten title game against either Ohio State or Oregon. Let me go up a little ways. Penn State and UCLA. 3:30 on CBS. I said this the other day, and I'm going to say it again. UCLA, you're a 25.5-point underdog, and I think you're going to get the brakes blown off you by Penn State. I would not show up. I would not show up to the Rose Bowl. I would not show up. I would forfeit the game and say, Penn State, you take the win. Go back to Happy Valley and get ready for your next game. But that's not going to happen. With that being said, though, I am taking Penn State because I feel like Jim Knowles is going to have this Penn State defense angry and ready to fight against UCLA. And Nico Iamaleava, you see his stats on the screen. 700 yards passing, over 700 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. That is ugly. That's not a good stat line. And the last Big Ten game we are picking is Minnesota and Ohio State. And I need to say something to all the Minnesota fans and everybody that wants to pick Minnesota to go into Columbus and upset Ohio State. sorry to break it to you, that is not going to happen. Ohio State is not losing at home to an unranked 3-1 Minnesota team. Now, I'm not going to say the game's not going to be close, but I don't see it getting to 45.5 points. Give me Ohio State to win. I think Julian Sayin throws for at least 3 touchdowns in this game. 3. Before we get to let's see, 4 people. Yes, John 3:16. Roll time. Hey, Ethan, roll time. I'm going to say this. I was wrong on Alabama. Aggie, are you saying that Iowa State blows out Cincinnati? If you are, I would agree. I think the Iowa State-Cincinnati game is done by halftime. I don't think there's any shot at an upset. Before we get to the SEC and the ACC for game picks, here is the upset ladder for week number 6. And the way it works is if we predict an upset, we get plus 5 points, no upset -2, and a blowout loss is -5 points. So we start with the note, and our points right now are upset, no shot. We are at -1 point. And we start with Penn State and UCLA. There's absolutely 0 chance that there's an upset here. If Penn State gets upset, James Franklin should be gone. There's no chance of an upset. Oregon State and App State, again, another game where there is zero chance of an upset. None at all. Air Force Navy, again, another game. 0 chance there's an upset. Kansas UCF. I know I said on Tuesday night that there was going to be an upset in this game. I don't think there will be. I think Iowa State, I think Kansas blows out UCF. Now we get to the slim chance. And there's only 3 games on the 4 games on the slim chance. First one is Kentucky, Georgia. And our point total, we're in the negative on slim chance, -6 points. But I feel like we could turn it around this week. Slim chance of an upset, Wisconsin over Michigan. And I just went over this game in game picks a minute ago. I don't see, I see maybe if Wisconsin comes out and plays good, maybe there's an upset. But I can see maybe it happening. Kentucky, Georgia, same thing. I think Georgia blows the brakes off of Kentucky. Oklahoma State, Duke, and Cal. Duke's got to travel across the country to Cal Berkeley. Slim chance of an upset here, but I could see it happening. And then Oklahoma State, Arizona. Why even Oklahoma State's a mess. Then again, there could be a slight chance of an upset here, but I still don't see it. Now we get to watch out, and we're at plus +1 point. First game is Colorado TCU, and I just picked TCU to win this game, but I'm going to say watch out TCU. Colorado could easily pull an upset here. Not saying it's going to happen, but they could. Next one is K-State and Baylor. I did say things might get wacky in Waco. In this football game between K-State and Baylor, you just never know. Watch out, Watch out, Baylor. NIU and Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio needs to watch out in this case. They might get upset. Who knows? And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I do watch all of these college football games. And the last one is UTSA, Washington, and Maryland. Watch out, Washington. You could be on upset alert. You're lucky I didn't put you in the upset alert category because there's a couple other games, and I know we got an Alabama fan in here. And I want Alabama, Ethan, do you think Alabama's going to get beat by Vanderbilt this week? Yes or no? And everybody else that's in the comment section, yes or no, is Bama going to lose this week? And the last one, back to Washington and Maryland. Washington needs to watch out. They could get upset. And the last one is UTSA and Temple. Temple has been decently good this year. Could they pull off an upset? I can see it, but at the same time, I can't. Now we get to the teams that are on upset alert, and we're at positive 8 points. First one is Vanderbilt versus Alabama. And I know what everybody's going to say. Oh, it was a fluke that Vandy beat Alabama last year. Yes, you could say it was a fluke, but could I see Alabama being on upset alert again against Vandy this year, even though they're at home? Yes, I could. And we've got two other games, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. I was really impressed with Mississippi State last week against Tennessee. So with that being said, I think A&M needs to be careful. They are on upset alert. And the last one is Clemson and North Carolina. Now, I don't think an upset happens here, but it is worth putting Clemson on upset alert, though. Absolutely it is. And then book it. We're at plus 8 points, which means an upset is going to happen. Thanks for the comment. Texas Tech and Houston. I could absolutely see an upset. I could absolutely see an upset in the Texas Tech Houston game. Houston has played really well this year, and I could see them pulling an upset here. Michigan State, Nebraska. I just told you that I'm taking Michigan State, and I think Nebraska is absolutely due to get upset. And the last one is Miami and Florida State. This could absolutely be an upset. Miami has not been tested yet this year, and I can see them getting tested by Florida State. Now we go back to the game picks. And we're going to wrap up the game picks with the ACC and the SEC. And we start in the ACC with, got to go down to Saturday, Clemson and North Carolina. And I did put Clemson on upset alert, and I'm also going to pick North Carolina here to pull the upset. Clemson's a 13.5 point favorite. I'm not going to say Clemson is checked out for the season because they're only 1-3. They could easily win this game and make me look stupid. But then again, they could also get upset by North Carolina and go to 1-4. Do I think Dabo's on the hot seat? Timeout. No, I do not think Dabo's on the hot seat. But I do think North Carolina can keep this game close and possibly pull an upset. Wake Forest and Virginia Tech. Va-Tech is a 6.5 point favorite, and I talked about this on the Saturday Night Lights podcast last night, how I think Virginia Tech might be back. I think Brett Pry getting fired was the best thing for Virginia Tech. They won both the games They have won 2 straight games since firing Brett Pry. And I think they make it 3 straight against Wake Forest. Campbell and North Carolina State. This one is very simple. Give me North Carolina State. We don't even need to go into SMU and Syracuse. This is 17. SMU is a 17.5 point favorite at home against Syracuse, who lost their quarterback a couple weeks ago. Prayers up to Steve Angeli. We never wish injuries upon anybody on this show. Steve Angeli was having a really good year for Syracuse before he got hurt. But I'm going to take SMU and the points here to win and cover. Now we get to Florida State and Miami, the biggest game of the week. And I did put Miami in the book it category for an upset because Florida State's at home and Florida State is no joke. I think Florida State can absolutely win this game and beat Miami. So give me Florida State and plus the points, which is 4.5. And we wrap up the game picks with the SEC. We start with Kentucky, Georgia. This game's easy. Give me Georgia, and I don't think there's any chance Kentucky wins. Give me Georgia to cover the 20.5 and win. Florida and Texas. I know everybody wants to say, oh, it's only 6.5 points that Texas is favored by, and they're going to win this game. Yes, they're going to win it, but it is not going to be close. I think Arch Manning goes up and down the field at will and throws for at least 350 yards passing and 4 touchdowns against the Gators. And Texas blows out Florida 56-10. And Billy Napier gets fired. Vanderbilt, Alabama. Vanderbilt is a 10.5 point underdog. And I didn't expect Vandy to win this game last year, and they did. I know it's in Tuscaloosa this year, but I'm feeling risky here. Give me the Commodores to upset Alabama for the second year in a row, and give me Vandy in the points. Kent State, Oklahoma. Nice little consolation prize for Kent State as they play at Oklahoma, and they're going to get their behind whooped even without John Mateer. And I'm talking about Kent State. Kent State's going to lose by at least 40. That's why the line is 45.5. Give me Oklahoma and a laugher. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. I mentioned how Texas A&M is on upset alert. I am still picking them to win this game against Mississippi State. But they need to be really careful. If they're not careful, they might lose to Mississippi State. And that is it for the game picks. Now, are you talking about Michigan or Mississippi State? Please clarify. If you're talking about Michigan, I absolutely think Michigan does win. If you're talking about Mississippi State, there's a chance they could beat Texas A&M. Now here's the cover picks for this week. Virginia Tech. I had the Virginia Tech line at -3.5, and I think they cover that against Wake Forest. Ohio State -22.5 to cover against Minnesota. I think all these first two are pretty easy. Minnesota's a decent 3-1 team, and Wake Forest is They're in the middle of I don't want to say a rebuild, but I would love to take Virginia Tech minus the 3.5 and Ohio State minus 22.5. And then on Friday, you got USF minus 27.5 to cover against Charlotte. Charlotte is not very good. So give me USF to cover minus 27.5. K-State plus 6.5 to cover against the Baylor Bears. I like K-State covering the spread here. Like I said, I don't think they win. And then Michigan State plus 9.5 to cover against Nebraska. I think that line for the Michigan State-Nebraska game is too low. And we will be I will have another game picks episode later on today around 5 o'clock for the group of 5. And at the end of that, we will be doing a Q&A. I'm going to briefly talk about Julian Sayin and what my thoughts are on him through 4 games. I thought when Ohio State named him the starter before the season that it was a good move. And I also appreciate Leaking Keenholz staying at Ohio State and not jumping in the portal. So at least we have veteran experience behind a guy like Sayin. And I think Julian Sayin might put his name in for the Heisman within the next couple weeks. And now, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section down below. This is Q&A now. Any questions you have for me on college football, I'm all ears, ready to listen. Send me your questions. If that's the case, your favorite college football analyst, Alec, that's the Blitz and Glory way, signing off. I will see everyone back at around 5 o'clock with another episode of the Blitz and Glory podcast and game picks. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday.